here today with is it Ditterick? Is that how you say it?
Ditterick.
Okay, Ditterick. Uh-huh. And we're going to be interviewing him about his service or his time in the military service. So Bob, that was the last guy. Sorry about that. Norb, thank you very much for agreeing to do this for us, okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to come over here where I belong and sit down and behave myself best I can anyway. So.
Okay.
And I always just like to get a little bit of an idea of what a person was doing before the war came along. So maybe just well, first of all, where were you born? Let's just start with there.
In Perm.
You were born in Perm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you live most of your life in Perm up until the time the war came along, or not?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I think I overheard you mentioning that you were already married then by the time this came along. So what? Let's see. You went to high school in Peru, I'm assuming that.
Right.
So what did you do after high school?
I went to work for a local lumber company. The name of the lumber company was Wilcox.
Okay.
The reason I say that, they're no longer in business, obviously.
Okay, sure. Okay. And go ahead. I was just going to ask, had you known your wife to be in high school?
Yes.
Okay. So you had dated while in high school?
Right.
All righty. And then how soon, when did you wind up getting married?
October 1941.
October of 1941. Okay. And let's see. You mentioned something earlier. Pearl Harbor came up, and I kept stopping you and saying, "Wait, we want to talk about this when we got the video running." But tell us a little bit about Pearl Harbor Day and what you remember hearing about that.
Well, it was kind of obviously a shock, We had the radio on, of course, they were really hooping it up about Pearl Harbor. And which was true, because I lost a few buddies that day in Pearl Harbor.
Did you know Rasmussen and the ones that the VFW were named after?
Yes.
Yes, they were friends of yours then?
Yeah. At least acquaintance.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Okay.
And I guess they were friends, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember how you very first heard about it?
Yes. It had to be on a Sunday, if you remember that. I don't know. But
right, it was, yes.
And I was in my bathroom shaving the old whiskers off. And then my wife, Lucille, came running in. "Dad, do you hear that?" "Yeah," I said, "a bunch of crap."
Because you didn't believe it at first, or?
No, I guess none of us really did,
Okay.
But then, between the tears of my wife and the radio, I said, "Would you please be quiet? I'm trying to get some facts and figures." But anyway, that's how it began. It was a shock.
Yes. Now, I think I heard you saying something about your wife mentioning that you just had been married and...
Right, we were married in October, so it was recent.
Right. But there was some comment about that now you were going to have to be taking off. What had you said about that? That your Lucille had said something about, "Oh, great, here do you remember how you said it or anything? "Oh, great, here we just got married and you're going to have to be taking off and I'm going to have to hold the home front together," or something like that, wasn't it? Or you said?
Well, it was kind of comical because the president of the company I worked for, he was on the phone every day. How you coming on the draft?" I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll take care of that. So he drives up with his new Cadillac. I'm going to the draft board. I'll take care of everything. I said, good luck, fella.
Yeah, your Cadillac isn't going to impress Uncle Sam.
Not one bit.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Fact is, within a month, I was regraded to 1A available, right now.
Like, boom. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm trying to remember the name of the gal that ran the draft board in Purim. I interviewed her, and was it Mary Hemmelgarn? Is that
Yes.
right? Yeah, I interviewed her for a different project we were doing. So
She's a nice lady.
very nice lady. I really enjoyed her. Yeah.
Her husband and I were good friends.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah. So would that have been then? Well, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Did you get your wonderful little greetings in the mail then?
Oh, sure. The next day, I think.
The next day. I think I would have gone to the boss and said, next time, don't try and help until I ask for your help or something. I don't know. But, okay.
Obviously, he called me up the same day. Did you get reclassified? Yeah. I said, A1 available. Oh, of course, you'd have to know my boss. I wouldn't dare repeat what he said, but.
Yeah, I kind of get the idea. Yeah. Might have to do a little bit of bleeping out there or something. Huh? Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
that's right. But anyway, it was.
Now, would it have been Mary then that you went to report to after getting that letter? Mary Hemmelgarn?
Yeah, sure.
That would have been her that you would have gone to at that. I mean, then that would be the next thing you would do is go meet with her.
Her boss was somebody, Clyde Reynolds. He was actually in charge, but.
Okay, sure.
But Mary and this Clyde worked very closely together.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what did you find out when you went there?
It's been written, so it is.
I see. In other words,
no changes.
Sure, yeah. So how soon did you have to report somewhere then?
The same month in October.
Mm-hmm. Or December, you mean? Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Sure. Uh-huh. Where did you go from there then?
Fort Snelling.
Okay. And did you take off on that early morning bus? I think I remember her telling me about. Didn't you guys go by bus real early in the morning or something?
Yep. We was on our way, I think, by 9 o'clock.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Who was there to see you off? Did you have parents in the area also, or?
Yes. Obviously, my wife and my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I mentioned before, I have 3 sons, 4 daughters. So.
Okay.
Mail call every day. I was present.
What's that?
Mail call every day. I was present. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So when you went to Fort Snelling, was that for your physical and things like that?
Already had my physical.
You had your physical. Okay.
And I was already sworn in.
Oh, all right. Okay. So at that point, you were on your way to basic then?
Right.
From Fort Snelling then?
Right.
Okay. And where did you wind up for basic? If you recall.
Well, Fort Snelling, of course, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The old man in charge, and I don't remember him, but he was a captain of some kind.
Okay.
He said, we got military police taking their basic training how about you fall in with them? I said, do I have a choice? He said, no.
Then I guess I'll fall in with them, huh? Okay, that's how it went. Probably you were a tall guy and substantially built, and so he thought, okay, I got another MP on my hands.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that was
Okay. So you did your basic right at Fort Snelling then?
Yeah, the real basic. And then,
Yes.
then later on, I was transferred out to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Yes, okay.
And then I specialized in a branch of the service, which happened to be the Army Engineers.
Okay. So you didn't stay as an MP or anything. He just kind of put you in that group and trained you in, but that was just kind of a temporary thing.
Of course, he had to give me something to do, so kind of interesting. I started riding the trains as a MP guard. Because you can imagine, if you would, what it was like back in those days with a brand new war. And nobody really, in plain words, nobody gave a damn, really.
Mm-hmm.
But that was part of it.
Mm-hmm. Now you say you rode the trains as an MP, meaning public trains?
Yes. The NP, for instance,
Yeah.
I had a run from St. Paul to Butte, Montana every day.
Every day. You went from St. Paul to Butte, Montana, and then the next day back?
Yes.
Oh my word. You're talking to a guy that starts clawing the headliners in a car after 40 minutes. I cannot imagine. Of course, I guess you could stand up a little bit on a train, but still.
Yeah.
Really. Now, what was the purpose of having an MP on board? Just in case something would happen because we're now at war?
Well, you can perhaps guess. The guys became pretty unruly.
So this was a military train?
Not necessarily.
No. Okay. All right.
It's a car 46B. What's that? There was like probably 17 cases of booze on that car.
Oh, okay.
And the guys proceeded drinking it.
Okay. So this was you were there to keep the military people that were riding the public train in line.
Right.
Got ya. Okay. Which proved to be a challenge.
Oh, was it ever. I never poured so much good whiskey down the drain in my life.
In fact, that was probably the hardest part of the war, right?
I shut my eyes.
Oh, dear. Wow. And they had really gotten like that many cases on board somehow?
Wow.
Wow.
The service was kind of funny in that respect. It was just a big chain of guys. And the guys yelled, hey, you guys got any booze on this train? Sure. If not, there's a liquor store right over there. And they pointed at the liquor store in Perm, see?
Okay.
So,
Wow, they found any way they could to make sure there was some on board. Huh? Yeah. And it was against their orders to drink any. Is that correct?
That's right. They're
Yeah.
not supposed to drink in the public transportation.
Right. Okay. And so that was while you were stationed still in Fort Snelling.
Right.
That you would go to Butte, Montana and back.
Right.
Okay. Too bad they didn't have frequent flyer miles or frequent railroad miles. Oh boy, you could have gone around the world a couple times on those.
Yeah, so I have a pocket full of passes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, After Fort Lewis, Washington, you mentioned that you went, where was it you went to specialize? Or no, it was when you went to Fort Lewis, Washington, that then you specialized in the engineers,
Right,
Army engineers.
right.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about arriving the first day, if you can recall anything about arriving at Fort Lewis, Washington. What was that like?
Just being a little country boy, I thought, holy cow, this is the end of the trail for me. It wasn't, you know.
Uh-huh, yeah. If only it had been, huh? Yeah. Okay.
But they really kept me busy out there. I didn't know anything about Army engineers. I'll tell you what I read in the manual. But we sure learned, I'll tell you that.
So did you have classes each day?
Oh, yes.
Lots of them, I suppose. What types of engineering were they teaching you?
Basically, combat engineering. I was assigned to a combat engineering outfit. They had both, you know. They had non-combat and combat. Well, I had two brothers in the service, so I said, hell, give me the combat, because they were already in combat.
Now, what types of thing did that encompass? Like learning to do floating bridges and things, or what?
Right. We'd build them over a creek or stream, and then 5 minutes later blow them up, and then try to rebuild them.
That was the real practicality of the matter, huh?
Yes, it was.
Really?
We actually had to run Army vehicles over the bridges we built. So we didn't want them to go down.
Not really. You'd have gone down with them, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Right.
Now, was this the type deal where they had boats connected to each other and then would run planks on the boats, or what kinds of floating bridges did you do?
That was one type. Another type was actually we'd construct the guts for them. We'd construct trestles and stuff to support. But a lot of times, like you mentioned, it was a bunch of boats when you use the boats.
What types of things besides bridges would you have been responsible for doing in engineers?
Well, it depends on the area. We done a lot of our training at night, right near the famous mountain they got over there.
Where was over there again? Where did you wind up going to? Or you mean still in Fort Lewis?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking overseas by now. Fort Lewis, Washington, not Rainier or whatever, is it?
You got it.
Yeah, Rainier. Okay then. At night near Rainier then. And what type of training was that for?
Oh, how to read a compass in the dark. They'd take us to the Army truck, drop us off. You never knew where. I got a kick out of it sometimes. Some of the boys would come back to Fort Lewis like 4 days later. They didn't read a compass very well.
Or maybe they read one really well and they'd hit a couple bars and then came back.
That's possible, yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other types of structures that you would have to build? Or was it mainly about bridges and roads and things? And
Well, sometimes we had to build barracks, you know, there was no place to put the guys.
what type construction would they use for a quick barracks, or were they more long term that you would wind up building?
Well, pretty much long term, I mean.
Okay. Okay.
But they were available, you might say, overnight.
Really?
We had to get the suckers up, and have a place for the boys to sleep.
Wow. Were they wood construction mainly?
Yes, wood. Real fast.
Did you guys have parts of them already constructed that you could, like, did you have prefab walls made up or anything, or you just started from scratch and up it went?
Most of the time we started from scratch, although later on as the war progressed, we got to be a little more modernistic, where we had pre-cut walls, all you have to do is slap them up, nail them down. I got to tell you what incident, which I thought was interesting. Actually going overseas. I worked like today all day. My job was getting the records complete with the men that were going to leave the next morning for overseas. Needless to say, I didn't go. I became ill that night. Really ill. And what happened, not a big thing, but I wound up with a ruptured appendix. Of course, the Army done things their way. They had a large hospital out in that Mount Rainier district, really out in the boonies. That's where they took me to have surgery. 48 days later, I got back to my unit.
48 days. Got an infection?
I don't know, it burst anyway.
Yeah.
And they had to do a lot of scraping.
Yeah, okay. Wow. Wow. Huh.
Major done the surgery, and he said, "You're lucky, soldier. If I wouldn't be your neighbor, I wouldn't be doing such a good job." He happened to be from Duluth, Minnesota.
I see. Okay. Wow.
Anyway, this camp out there, thousands of people out there. Just one big old barracks after another. Of course, the hospital. They did, surprisingly, it was way out the sticks, but they were well equipped.
Now, how long were you at Fort Rainier, do you suppose? As a whole,
Well, that was like a year and a half.
Okay. Yeah. That's all right. Thanks. Yeah. Then, were you assigned someplace after Fort Rainier?
No, I spent the rest of my Army days right there.
Okay, so you just were able to keep doing the same duties
Yeah.
while you were there then. Okay. So when you did the training and such for instance, making portable bridges and things, or floatable bridges and things, then did you turn around and train others to do the same?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That was primarily our job, to train people for what they were assigned to.
To wind up doing themselves.
Right.
Sure.
Well, here a few months ago when I was assigned here,
Uh-huh.
I thought, holy cow, back in the old Army. Pretty much follow Army regulations here.
Ah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
They tell you when to get up, they tell you when to go to sleep, they tell you when to eat. But no complaints.
Yeah, yeah. Just part of the continuing cycle of life. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, at least they don't feed you K rations, do they? So that's one up.
We figured that was coming next.
Yeah. Now let me think. We were talking about that you trained. Yeah, okay. So you first had to learn how to do, for instance, building a flotation bridge or something yourself,
Oh, sure.
and then you became an instructor.
Right.
Okay. How long, like, was it an entire class that would start at once and that you would train and then they would graduate and go on and a whole nother class would come in a chunk, or did people come in a few at a time?
Well, most of them was a troop train that would come in. And it wasn't a troop train, it was a certain number of cars on a regular passenger train.
Okay.
And we'd have to meet them at the depot and, okay, you guys, heads up, get in that army truck there. Army truck?
You were expecting perhaps a limo?
I'm sure.
And then from that point on, they were yours.
You bet.
Okay. Now, did you have to deal with any discipline things or more just instruction?
Oh, no, discipline too.
Okay.
That was quite the thing, discipline. We had some people or some soldiers that didn't believe in discipline.
But I'm sure that you kind of changed their mind.
By the time they left Fort Lewis, they were geared for one thing, Army engineers.
Uh-huh. Well, then you did your job. You did what you're supposed to be doing then. Now, did your wife stay in Purim the entire time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get a leave now and then to come back?
Oh yeah, I think I got 2 furloughs when I was out to the West Coast. And the furloughs were usually 10 days, so you didn't have a lot of time, but not bad.
What was it like having to get back on the train to head back after 10 days of being at home?
Plain word, it was hell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speak freely here. Yeah. It must have been. I mean, yeah. Communication, you could write back and forth.
Oh, yes.
At that point in time, though, were phone calls kind of too costly to consider very often?
You bet. Phone wasn't used very much, you know. Not for the big salary we were making, you know.
Yeah. It was more important to put most of it into your investment portfolio, right? I think I understand. So, I mean, really, people didn't just casually call each other up on the phone to talk.
Not like today.
Yeah.
Boy, today, if I was in the service, it'd be a lot different. Hell, I made no contact with my wife sometimes for months outside of letters, you know.
Should have just used your cell phone. The plan on those is pretty much free for nationwide calling. Things really have changed.
Oh, wouldn't that be something today?
Wouldn't that? Yeah. And of course, there's instant email messaging, even to where you can just message right back and forth nowadays.
Yep.
Very different. Yeah.
My daughter has a son living in Montana, so we've been sending email to him, you know.
Cool. You're learning to do it? That's neat.
She did, because she works in an office.
Okay, she does the typing, but you're there and you guys kind of message back and forth. That's neat. That's really neat. That's cool.
Wouldn't that be something today, though? I wonder how that would work with thousands of guys in the service, you know?
Yeah. They do them though, I guess, because everybody's just got their own little email account. And
Yeah.
have you guys done pictures back and forth yet? Get a little digital camera, you can just download them, boom, and send them. And
The address for here is generationsonline.com.
for Emmanuel, oh, so you can send them right to here.
Yeah.
And then they have a place, a room you can go down to and use a computer to access that stuff. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Things are so different today.
They just are, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh. I was just trying to think if I took a camera digitally, or a picture digitally and downloaded it in my computer, if I would email it to here, would you be able to forward it out? You know, I mean, I think it'd be pretty cool to, you know, be able to send a picture from him out to whoever, it's your son or something like that. Remind me when we go to leave, I have my digital camera out in the car to just snap a couple shots. It'll be a few days till I'm back home. I'm on the road right now. But I'll remind me to write that email address down here, and I'll send them to him or you or whoever, and then you'll be able to just forward that picture right out wherever it is. That'd be cool. Make sure I remember. Okay.
But I'm afraid
Yeah, it's on tape now. That's fine.
your camera is frozen solid by now.
Oh, I'm gonna put these here so I don't. That's the way I remember things. I forgot to mention these are actually just empty, and it's to make you feel important.
Okay.
These are just hollow plastic little shells here.
A thought entered my mind.
Yeah, I know.
How long he was in the service total?
Yeah, do you know how many years total you were in the service then?
About 3.5 years.
And the vast majority of that at Fort Lewis then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or traveling. I got hooked in on this MP bit, you know.
Was that for quite a while?
The MP instructor out of Fort Snelling kept getting a hold of my name. I don't know how, but I suppose all he had to do was call a number, which I'm sure he had.
Yes.
So, for instance, I had started a program to a little town in Canada. Even the Canadians got so they insisted military protection.
Really?
Yeah. Of course, you get even 12 or 15 seasoned soldiers, you know. And they figure, I'm not taking this BS, you know. So that party time.
Yes. And Canada was so close.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they would station an MP in a little town in Canada to kind of be there to protect the town from the GIs, basically.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You got assigned that duty then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, believe me, it was not a bad duty, but sometimes we as MPs took a lot of abuse, which we wouldn't do today. Soldier, you shut your mouth or you're going to be in the brig. In those days, you didn't get by with that.
You didn't?
No.
I'm surprised at that. I thought military discipline would be such that, boy, if someone crossed an MP, they were in big trouble. It wasn't that way.
Mm-hmm.
Huh, that's surprising.
We were called everything and anything but MPs.
I see. Yeah, the kind that on a typewriter you'd be using a few little stars and asterisks and percent signs for.
Right.
I see. Oh, that's amazing. No, you sure wouldn't be getting away with that nowadays.
No, oh, never.
Yeah. Huh.
Dad, do you remember what day you left after December 7th of 1941? Did you leave in December? Or did you get to stay till Christmas with Mom?
No, that was my first Christmas away from my family.
You were gone already by Christmas.
Yep,
And Norbert was born in what year?
42.
He was born when you were away? And still in the service.
No, I was still in the service, but I was still in Minneapolis when he was born, my oldest son.
Yes. Okay. Huh. Yeah, if you have other questions, go ahead. Yeah.
And when you came home, remember what year was that when you came home from the service?
Must have been 45.
How old was Norbert when you came home? Was he a year old?
He was big enough running around. Yeah. Never forget I came home during the middle of the night, maybe around 3:30 in the morning. So obviously the first thing I did was, one of the first things was crawl to bed. I didn't go over very well with my son.
Wow.
He had everything, including long needles.
He had long needles. What now?
Well, my wife was quite a seamstress in those days. She knit and all that.
Oh, sure.
She had these big long needles, and she had apparently given him some of those. So I told you, get the hell out of there. They were jabbing me.
He did not know.
Didn't know who you were.
No, I didn't know that.
No. Now, had your wife known you were coming home at that time, or was this just a surprise? I mean.
No, she knew I was coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Uh-huh. Do you remember? Well, let's see. You think you were like, well, when you came home, had you been discharged formally then when you came back home, or were you still actively? Were you still theirs, or were you a free man, or?
To begin, I was still theirs. I just have a delay en route, they used to call it.
Yes. Okay.
But then when I was finally discharged out at Fort Lewis, then I was done.
Okay. Now, do you remember hearing about VE Day? Do you remember any celebration or big deal about Victory in Europe Day when Germany surrendered?
Oh yes, we had to stand at attention on the parade grounds like 45 minutes in silent prayer and respect. That happened quite often. Roosevelt, then of course Harry Truman.
Stand in respect and silent prayer for all of the soldiers that had died, or for Roosevelt himself? I'm not quite.
Well, it was, you always had an MC,
Mm-hmm.
He can hold that damn microphone. I remember Franklin Delano.
No, that's fine. It is. It's total. Everything goes here. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we had quite a few dignitaries that died, in the beginning of the war.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now, But then when VE Day came along, when Germany had surrendered, did the base go wild? Did people hoop and holler and whoop it up, or was it business as usual?
Our company was business as usual.
Okay.
We had a very strict commanding officer. He was a one-star general, and they're the worst.
Because they're somebody, but they think they're everybody, or they think they're the top dog kind.
He was already booking for 2 stars. See.
Okay. And I suppose everyone was still very conscious that there was the war in the Pacific going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What about VJ Day? Do you remember hearing about that? Were you still at Fort Lewis
Oh yes.
for that? That must have been more of a, I mean, the whole thing was over then.
Yeah.
Did people let loose a little bit more then?
Oh yeah. A certain number of soldiers they managed to get a motorized unit to parade around the fort a little bit.
And did they loosen up the alcohol restrictions or anything on a day like that?
It
Or-
seems like they must have,
I
but
was going to say, whether they loosened it up or not, it happened, right?
it haven't.
Yeah. Did you? Oh, okay. You just go ahead and step in. That's fine.
Here, got a little right there.
One of the reasons I'm in here, I had quite a few strokes.
Oh, okay. Well, you're doing pretty good then.
And my left side is still out of control.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that because you're doing really good. Wow. You mentioned having 2 brothers that were in this service. Did both of them return home?
Yes.
Okay, so you were very lucky there.
Yeah, because one was in the Southwest Pacific and the other one was in the Northwest Pacific. So they were in 2 different.
Totally different theaters, so to speak, or areas of the theater. Yeah.
And I felt kind of guilty because I had nothing spectacular happened to me.
You know, I've interviewed people that baked bread for the people in basic training, and guess what? Someone had to do that.
So I know.
You know, and the things that you trained the men to do saved lives and helped the war effort every bit as much. So I understand what you're saying, but everyone was asked to do a different role, and you need all of those roles.
That's true.
Yeah, you bet. And for this project, we want to, hear from people that, fulfilled all sorts of different things. So we get kind of a well-rounded picture of the entire thing. So this is important. That's good.
Which brothers that were, which ones, what were their names?
George was my older brother. He was all through the Southwest Pacific pretty much.
And what was the other brother's name?
Joe.
Joe?
He was in the European theater.
Okay.
And he said he would they'd go through Europe where Hitler's gang would take over a hotel. And of course the liquor lounge was never destroyed, So they'd move in a hotel that old Adolf used for his men. Well, I know what they would have, a big party.
A big party. I don't know if I'd feel guilty about that. I'd say you earned it. Earned it by the time you'd won that hotel over or that town over. Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Any other questions you have? Because I really want you to feel free to ask.
everyone was from Perm, right? Your Ditterick family. They were born and raised in Perm. And so was Mom. Mom's maiden name was Scheidegger. They were born in Perm.
Yep.
Related to Chuck Scheidegger?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've interviewed him.
Did you?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that must have been quite an interview.
Okay. What's that?
That must have been quite an interview.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah. What do you have any other questions you have thought of along the line?
Really, just, I guess my thinking was how everybody fix it out.
Yeah, I think that's good. You hadn't quite figured out how to say, get at that. Just kind of wondering, how did your wife cope with all this? How did she take it? Could you tell in what ways it was hard on her and such?
Oh, yes. I think the hardest thing that was in the service was a darn furlough, you know. You got home long enough to reacquaint yourself with your wife and your children, and then of course, boom, it was over with. Get back. But that's part of wartime.
She at least had family in the area that
Yes,
so she wasn't totally alone as such,
No,
at least.
that's right.
Yeah.
Where did Mom live in Perm when you were away? Was it out in the country or in town?
no, she got an apartment in town.
In someone's home, or like a little room in someone's home, or an actual apartment? Or?
Oh, there was a doctor in Perm at that time. Warner, Dr. Warner.
Dr. Warner?
He bought a clinic in Perm. Pretty much looked like one of these barracks. It was pretty good size.
Just for the record, those that weren't able to catch that, he was pointing to the other rooms across the courtyard here in the. I like it.
Like a barracks, you know?
I said, how'd you ever get in there? Oh, he's my doctor. You sure that's all he is?
Yeah.
What do you want a nice, honorable fellow?
Do you feel you learned anything while you were in the service that's been of value to you later on in your life?
Oh, yes. One thing I guess I'll never forget. At one time I was a pretty thick-headed kraut to get something through my head that I had to take orders from some pipsqueak, you know. I learned that, and I learned to take orders and shut up and do it. Made for a better guy.
Takes a strong man to say that, too.
Well, if you're going to get along in this world, you better fall in line.
Yeah, it's not all about ourselves, is it?
Sure.
What advice would you give to a young soldier that was going off to war or into the service in general?
Well, I'm not a preacher, but I would certainly give a little advice along that line.
To have a spiritual base to himself.
You bet.
Any fun incidents that you can think of, or pranks or anything that haven't come up while we're talking? Things maybe that you'd pull on each other during the course of a day or special occasions or something like that that you can think of that you can talk about?
Yeah. We had in our staff, we had a sergeant that explained, for instance, hand grenades. This turned out to be a comical situation, but he was explaining this hand grenade. And I said, I'm going to take the thing out so it's harmless as long as I don't drop it. Well, at that time we had brand new recruits. They thought a hand grenade was the end of the world, I guess. You drop that baby, everybody dies. I happened to be coming back to camp about that time when it was over with. Well, the next thing I knew, I was under about 1,200 size 12 shoes because he dropped this bomb. Everybody started going.
He did it on purpose just to scare him, right? Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was thinking of. That's good.
Yeah, I told him later, I said, I'll get back to you, buddy. I said, I'm afraid you will. And I did.
You did.
Do we ask what you did?
Yeah, do we dare ask how you got back?
Well, that was a dirty pool. We were camped out in the boonies, you know. I had some guys that could imitate a bear real good, you know. And he'd get back a bunch of trees and he was going through the ritual. Sounded like a female giving birth. I accused him of that. You could at least pick the male bear. Had to make it sound good.
Paybacks are
Yeah.
Good.
Anyway, I journeyed back to Fort Lewis here. Well, since the war.
Yes.
You know, I'm surprised it hasn't changed that much.
Really?
Fort Lewis was always a training camp, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They had what they called North Fort, which was basically for foot soldiers, you know. They had wooden, to begin with, we had some wooden huts where they'd probably put 6 guys in a hut. And if you didn't want to freeze to death, you got up and fired a little stove at night. And that North Fort is still the same. Was when I was out there, and it's
Really?
still got their little damnable homemade huts and hand-fed stoves.
Little coal stoves?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Do you remember what year that was, Dad, when you
Yeah,
went
when
out?
did you go back out and visit there? Do you remember roughly when that was?
I think it was probably about the year of 48, 1948.
Okay. Uh-huh. Huh.
And the main fort, of course, that turned out to be a soldier's paradise. You know, all brick buildings in it. They tore down all the old wood frame housing.
Okay. Huh.
And Fort Lewis is a beautiful fort now.
For sure it is. Did you have any other Question?
Did you ever keep in contact with any of your friends that you met there
Yeah,
in the
that's a-
service?
Oh, that was my big mistake.
Hmm.
The day I was discharged, along with several other hundreds. You can imagine what that was. Bye, Uncle Sam. See you next war.
Yeah. Just ready to leave it all behind?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I guess if I was asked today to go back in my same job, I guess I would do it. I was in charge of supplies for my company.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that doesn't sound like much, but it does when you stop to analyze what that meant. That meant all the ammunition that we used also. It had to come through me because I was the guy in charge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there was quite a bit to keeping track of all that and making sure you had enough on hand and things.
Oh man. Especially you had goons like you're truly be on a firing line. Didn't know when to stop. This is free, man.
We'll just keep firing off. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Was there something else you were going to say there, or?
No.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say thank you so much for allowing us to do the interview, and thanks for your service to your country. And I mean that, because you had a very invaluable part in training those men. And I want you to let you know that it hasn't gone forgotten. So thank you.